the last card of the year, and there's not going to be another one for about a month. And it was a solid fight night card. I'm not going to say the best fight night card of the year. I think that definitely goes to the London card earlier. But this one was pretty good, man. I was a little bit worried in the beginning where all the prelims, besides the Saeed fight, ended by decision. But then the first 4 fights of the main card ended by knockout, and the last 2 by decision. Even with the decision wins, there were a lot of good performances, but it was a pretty long one, I'm not going to lie. But let's look at that main event where Jared Cannonier defeats Sean Strickland by a split decision, 249-46 for him and 149-46 for Sean Strickland. And that's where a lot of people got a bit confused. How could one fighter get 49-46 and the other get the same scorecard? We cannot misunderstand what the scorecards mean. A 49-46 does not mean there was a dominant win. A lot of people think that's what it is. A lot of people think like if someone won 50-45 or 49-46, that means they clearly won the fight in a dominant fashion, when that's not necessarily the truth, because in this fight, just about every single round could have went to either guy. And with 2 of the judges, Jared edged out 4 of those rounds. Every round besides, I would say, the 4th round, all of the others could have went to either Strickland or Cannonier. The reason why I say the 4th one wasn't as close is because it was obvious who landed the harder strikes in that round. It was Cannonier for sure. He landed some good leg kicks and then some big haymakers that I think stole the round, because nothing Strickland landed in that round did anywhere near the damage that Cannonier did there. But all of the other ones, Strickland was landing some really good counter jabs, really good blitz combos. And that's where he should have went to more, and he just didn't. And also the front kick up the middle, he barely threw that as well, even though it was a great technique for him to create an obstacle for Cannonier to go down the center. Cannonier would have to take off angles instead, and cannot barge his way down the center with his high guard. Also, earlier in the fight, Strickland did land the front kick to the face when Cannonier was like faking by changing levels. I would say the biggest difference of the fight wasn't necessarily the skills of either guy. They were very evenly matched, but it was them listening to their corners. Cannonier was listening to his corner way more than Strickland was. When his coaches were telling him to go to the body, Cannonier was digging to the body. When they told him to go for leg kicks, he was going for leg kicks. Cannonier was also starting to find that left hook, right straight combo. Even though it wasn't landing all of the time, it was definitely the best combo he was throwing in the fight. And man, those leg kicks were damaging. A few of them were landing clean on Strickland and taking away his stance. There was like a moment, I think it was in the 3rd round if I remember correctly, where he landed a big leg kick and you could see that Strickland wanted to change stances, but he's not as confident in southpaw against Cannonier as he was in orthodox, because he could rely on his left jab, which gets in the way of Cannonier's right hand from landing. But there were a lot of moments where Cannonier would land a big leg kick but not capitalize immediately afterward. And this is actually something that Dominic Cruz brought up in the commentary, and he was absolutely correct. There were moments where he could have pounced in there after a leg kick right away, but there was a delay before he ever did that. And that was why Strickland was able to defend those follow-up punches. But it was a fairly simple approach from both guys. Cannonier was really trying to take off some of those angles, switching stances all the time, and trying to find big hooks for entries. But there was a long time in the fight where Cannonier stopped throwing leg kicks, and I don't know what that was all about. Some of them did get checked, but most of them were landing. It does take one check to hurt your legs, so it could have been that. He could have been damaged a little bit from some of the checks from Strickland, and we have to give credit to Strickland for that, because he's known for not checking any kicks. But that was the thing from Sean Strickland, man. Whenever he was throwing combinations, they were landing. Those 3-4 punch combos, but he just barely ever committed to it. His corner kept telling him, go for the combos, keep throwing them, and he would just not do it. Throw the front kicks. He would just not do it. He just keeps doing what he's comfortable with. And I think it might have to do a lot with his sparring, because you could check all of his sparring sessions and he fights the same way as he does in a fight. And it may seem like he's not really trying anything different. And ultimately, the judges gave it to Cannonier because of the damage difference. Cannonier was swollen a little bit from some of the punches, and he did eat some really hard jabs, but the majority of the damage definitely came from Cannonier's side. From the legs to even the body and even the head strikes, Cannonier overall landed more damaging head strikes than Strickland did. And honestly, with this loss, I don't think it should hurt Strickland that much, given the context of the fight, because they were very evenly matched. You could barely tell who was the better fighter in there. And that should be part of this whole ranking thing. As they move the rankings, they should also take the context of the fight, not just who won or lost. But Cannonier is in a little bit of a difficult position because he just fought for the belt and he lost. And then he just fought the number 7 guy. So he went from fighting the champ to fighting number 7, where he's ranked number 3. Are they going to give him another guy much lower than he is? He fought 2 of the 3 guys ranked above him, The only guy he didn't fight was Pereira, so he lost to Adesanya, already lost to Whitaker. Number 4 is Marvin Vettori, and he's fighting Roman Dolidze. That's an exciting fight. I can't wait for that. I'm actually kind of surprised they put that one together so quickly. Cannonier already knocked out the number 5 Derek Brunson. Paulo Costa's fighting Robert Whitaker. Number 7 Sean Strickland. Number 8 is Roman Dolidze. Number 9 is Jack Hermanson, and Cannonier already beat him too. There is Dricus du Plessis, but I don't think Cannonier wants to fight number 10 right now. I think regardless of what happens, I would love to see Cannonier fight Paulo Costa because I think that matchup would be so entertaining. Costa would definitely bring the fight to Cannonier, and then you see the power from Cannonier come alive in there. Costa brings on the volume, brings on all the pressure. It could be a very dangerous fight for both guys, but the reality is Costa's kind of hard to work with. And he's already saying that he's not going to fight after this Whitaker fight. He's even saying he's not even going to fight Whitaker. I don't know what's going on with that politics there, but if it's not Paulo Costa, let's say he can't fight him, maybe he's going to have to wait until the winner of Marvin Vettori and Roman Dolidze. I don't think they want to put him and Adesanya again. It was a very boring fight. Yeah, I would say if he can get Paulo Costa, whether he wins or loses against Whitaker, or he waits until the winner of Vettori and Dolidze, I think those are the only things that make sense for him right now. And as for Sean Strickland, who's ranked number 7, I wouldn't mind to see him fight Derek Brunson, but he's going to have to wait a bit because Brunson is injured. If not him, he could fight Jack Hermanson. That makes perfect sense as well. Both guys are coming off losses. Both guys performed well in their fights. It wasn't like they got washed or anything. Jack had a very good fight against Roman where he was actually winning, and Strickland was pretty much even with Cannonier. So actually, that fight makes a lot of sense. I think it's actually a pretty good fight to put together. A lot of volume from both guys. They don't have much power and stuff, but you'll see Jack try to take the fight to the ground. We'll see Strickland's takedown defense and some of his grappling. I think it'll be a much more of a technical chess match. And sometimes those are fun to watch. And then we go to the co-main event. Arman Tsarukyan defeats Damir Ismagulov by a decision, 30-27 across the board. No questions about it. Arman was definitely the better fighter there. His wrestling made such a difference, and his kicks were also very effective. He was actually even showing some good jabs against one of the best jabbers in the whole division. Damir's jab is absolutely a beauty to watch. Such perfect form, such great extension, so fast. But man, did he have a hard time with the takedowns. He was able to defend a lot of them, and even when he got taken to the ground, he was able to get up pretty quickly. But he had a hard time getting Arman off of him. And Arman was definitely finding some great openings for takedowns under Damir's counter left hook. So he would get Damir to throw out that left hook by feinting, and then he would dive in on the single once Damir throws that left hook. Because when you throw a left hook going backwards, you're leaving your left leg extended forward. It's the closest body part to your opponent, and that's what Arman was attacking. He started to do that like halfway throughout the second into the third. The first one was a lot more dicey. It was trickier for Arman to find some success. He brought some of those lead kicks so quickly. I mean, such an insanely fast high kick with the lead leg. Many fighters can't throw it that fast. And you could definitely see where Arman's getting better. He just turned 26 years old, very young, and he just fought Damir Ismagulov. I mean, look at the man's career. So his 14th professional fight when he was 23 years old, he fought the current champion Islam Makhachev and gave him his toughest fight. Then he fought Olivier Aubin-Mercier, who's terrorizing opponents in the PFL right now. He defeated Davi Ramos, a world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist, defeated Matt Frevola, who's looking great right now, knocked out Christos Giagos, destroyed Yoel Alvarez, who a lot of people thought would have a great chance in that fight, and for any fight in the lightweight division, had a very close one against Mateusz Gamrot for his first 5-round fight in his career. Didn't know how to pace himself, he never did it before, he's very young, a great learning experience for him, and then just beat Damir Ismagulov, who had one of the best fights with Guram Kutaladze. In such a highly skilled fight, it looked like it could be a championship fight in the lightweight division. Compare him to like Paddy Pimblett. Look who Paddy's fighting. There's a giant difference. Literally every single one of Arman's opponents is better than every single one of Paddy's opponents. Besides, there may be a debate between Christos Giagos compared to Jared Gordon, right? They're around the same kind of level. And Paddy Pimblett is older than Arman. He's more experienced than Arman. He's been fighting 3 years longer. He was a champion of Cage Warriors. He fought other veterans earlier in his career compared to Arman before the UFC. And they threw Arman to the wolves right away. And it's crazy how one guy could become so famous fighting half the level of competition compared to Arman, who looks like he could become the champion already. I would bet that Arman right now could beat some of those guys in the top 5. Like, really think about it. How would Arman Tsarukyan versus Michael Chandler look like? Arman's a cleaner striker. He has those high kicks. Chandler oftentimes abandons his defense. He's very explosive moving forward, but how he's going to defend the wrestling against Tsarukyan, I could definitely see him defending some of the early takedowns, but he cannot keep up that pace. And chain wrestling with Arman is going to be very difficult. I think he can do it before he starts gassing out, but the level of fight IQ that Arman is showing in his fights, I mean, some of the fastest level changes I've ever seen in the lightweight division, combined with the kicks, Michael's definitely a better puncher than Arman. He's definitely more experienced. He's going to be able to make some adjustments before he starts gassing out, because Chandler starts to gas out in that second round. It would be very interesting to watch. I'm not going to say Arman would beat him, but you can see how it's a very close fight. How does he fight Beneil Dariush? That's a close one as well. Dariush is the better overall striker, but how would the grappling between them look like? Mateusz Gamrot got his takedown shut down, so maybe Dariush could do the same thing to Arman, but Arman is a different kind of wrestling style and is much stronger than Gamrot. Gamrot was a former 145er. Arman would never be able to make 145. And you saw that even when he fought Damir Ismagulov, Arman looks so much stronger than that guy, and that guy's pretty big for this division. So that one could be interesting too. Gaethje gets destroyed. Let's just be honest here. Gaethje's not going to defend the chain wrestling. He'll defend the initial shot because of his explosiveness and because of his wrestling style, but he's going to have a very hard time chain wrestling. And not only that, Gaethje's leg kicks are going to get caught and get him taken to the ground. And as soon as Arman takes Gaethje to the ground, the fight is over. Gaethje's going to probably give up his back, give up his neck, and he gets wrapped up. Dustin versus Arman's interesting. I don't see Dustin defending the takedowns. He's definitely an overall better striker, a completely better boxer, can address some of the kicks well, but I just don't think he stops the takedowns. The real path of him winning that fight is by Arman getting tired, not be able to keep up in the 5 rounds, and Dustin starts to pour it on him on the later rounds. Charles Oliveira versus Arman's an interesting one too. I think Charles' Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu might be too dangerous at the end of the day, because remember that Arman, yes, is very skilled in what he does on the ground, but he commits so much, right? If you overcommit on Oliveira, you're going to land in one of his submissions. But how does the striking go? Oliveira can get cracked so easily by Arman, who's so much faster. Not nearly as clean of a striker, but if he throws in those overhands and hooks, blitzes down on Oliveira, things can get very ugly very quickly. And him and Islam is always going to be a very competitive fight, even right now. It's hard to look at him as not becoming a champion in the future. He's 26 years old and he's fighting at this level. By the time he hits his prime at like 30, I don't know who's going to be able to beat him. Maybe Islam, but Islam's going to be much older by that time, right? Islam's 31 years old now. At 35, will he be able to compete with a 30-year-old Arman Tsarukyan? I can't imagine so. I think Arman striking at that point is going to reach a whole nother level, shut down pretty much all the takedowns from Makhachev, and make it a bad fight for Islam on the feet. I'm going to say this right now, man. I'm going to say it again. I've never been as excited of all my time watching MMA as I am right now looking at the future of the lightweight division. It gets me so excited. I've never seen this before. I've never seen so much talent at one time creep up in one division like that. I've never seen this in the last like 15 years of me watching the sport. It's truly a special time and nothing for Damir to hang his head on. I mean, Arman and Damir both said that everybody turned them down. Nobody wanted to fight them, so they instead fought each other and know that down the road, they're going to rise up in the rankings. Damir is a bit older, he's 31, so he doesn't have as much time. But if he has the right kind of matchups, I could definitely see him being a top 5 fighter. I really don't see him becoming a champion because I think it's too late. He's pretty much a finished product at the moment, but I think of where he is right now, he could definitely beat some of those guys in the top 5. Mateusz Gamrot is still very good. He got shut down by Beneil Dariush, but he gives a lot of other guys a very, very hard time that don't have that kind of grappling prowess. But he is a bit smaller, man. He looks like he's the smallest fighter in the whole top 15. So he might have a bit of an issue when it comes to size and strength. Like, what does he do to Islam? But then you see other fighters, Jalen Turner is going to be a menace. Gulen Kutateladze, who fought pretty much evenly with Damir. A lot of people thought he beat Damir. Also gives a lot of the guys in the top 10 a very hard time. And then of course, Rafael Fiziev, who might be the absolute best striker in the whole division. It's either him or I'll say Dustin Poirier. Combined with his insanely explosive takedown defense, he's such a handful for anybody. Grant Dawson's doing amazing things too. So much talent in this division. And now we have to talk about, who does Arman fight next? This is the hardest question to answer because he's ranked number 9. He beat the number 12. So you can imagine him coming up above Rafael dos Anjos and taking that number 8 spot. And look who's ranked above him. Mateusz Gamrot is ranked above him, who he just fought. Rafael Fiziev is number 6. Michael Chandler is number 5. Dariush is number 4. Gaethje's number 3. Poirier's number 2. Oliveira's number 1. You could do him versus RDA, who just fought at welterweight. I don't know if he wants to come back to 155, but you know RDA is the BMF. Doesn't care. He'll fight anybody, any day, any weight class. That's the most likely guy that would take up a fight with Arman. Can you do him and Gamrot again? Can you do the rematch? I guess if there's no other option. I don't want to see Arman fight Fiziev. I want these younger guys, I want these guys coming up to fight the older fighters now. All those guys at the top, the Oliveras, the Poiriers, the Gaethjes, the Chandlers, they all fought each other. Enough of this already. They've been fighting each other for so long. We need to bring some new blood in there. So that is why I don't want to see Vazeev and Arman take each other out. We didn't want to see Arman and Damir take each other out. It's because these older guys at the top of the rankings don't want to fight any of the younger guys. There's so much money to be made against each other, but it's already all fleshed out. They all fought each other already, so they're going to have some new competition here. You could do Arman versus Chandler. So Chandler's been given a lot of opportunities to do something big. A lot of big matchups, and he fought them all. The only guy left for him is Conor McGregor, but we don't know when Conor's going to fight. He's going to have to go into USADA for 6 months, and he said he's going to start testing in February, so by the time it's August, that's when he can fight. Is Chandler really going to wait until August? I believe Chandler versus Arman makes the most sense. That's the fight I would love to see put together. I think Dariush deserves like a title shot or something. He just fought Mateusz Gamrot. He tried his hand in the younger competition, and he beat him. So he needs to be rewarded for that. Wait until the Islam and Volk fight. Get the winner of those two, or he could potentially fight someone like Charles Oliveira. He's earned that opportunity because he took the chance against Gamrot. I would like to see Gaethje versus Arman, but I would like to see Gaethje versus Vazeev way more. So I want to reserve that fight. Arman versus Poirier, that's a good one as well. Dustin just beat Chandler, and he said he doesn't want to fight Beneil Dariush, which means that he most likely will not even fight Arman, right? If he's not going to fight Dariush, who's ranked number 4, he's definitely not going to fight the number 9 ranked Arman. There's too much risk, no reward for it, which is a bit of a shame. Then there's Charles Oliveira. I don't imagine Oliveira would fight Arman, but I would love to see the fight. So I would say Arman Tsarukyan versus Michael Chandler is the fight to make next. And as for Damir Ismagulov, I don't think he should lose too much from this one. So it was the first ranked opponent that he went up against, but he went up against number 9. So going from unranked Guram to number 9 Arman is a pretty big jump in the rankings. So perhaps he can fight Dan Hooker. I wouldn't mind to see that one. Dan Hooker will fight another guy who's ranked below him. That's the fight I would like to see put together. Damir probably won't go to the ground. It'll be mostly a kickboxing match. Amir Albazi had a very good TKO win against Alessandro Costa, who took the fight on short notice, so all respect to Costa. Young guy for his UFC debut, went up against a monster like Albazi, who has superior striking and grappling going into the fight. It was a tough one for Costa, man, but it was something he would have to take. He did the organization a favor, and hopefully he gets something after this that isn't a ranked opponent like that. Right, Albazi was landing really good right hands, right uppercut, floored Costa. Whenever he got on top, Costa really couldn't do much from the bottom. Just a really good win from Albazi. And for his next one, let's put together that Alex Perez fight. Or you could do him versus Brian Royval. Either guy, they were both supposed to fight him, and ultimately they settled with Costa, so whether number 6 Perez or number 4 Royval, either fight makes sense. And then Alex Caceres knocking out Julian Erosa in the first round. For those who don't know, Alex Caceres has no knockouts in the UFC. 0. So he's been in the UFC since 2011. 11 years in the UFC, and he has not knocked out a single opponent. The only guy he beat by TKO was because of a doctor stoppage when he fought Rolando D. First knockout, and he did it in the first round. Of course, it would have to be against Erosa, who has virtually no defense at all, and he set up the kick so beautifully. Same side combo, which is something I've talked about a few times before. Definitely going to be a very hard kind of combination to defend against. He threw out the straight and then came up with the high kick over his own punch, and Erosa did not see it coming at all. Fighters are so conditioned on defending strikes that come opposite from each other, so like left, right. They're not so used to left, right, especially coming from a punch and a kick. And this is definitely something that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson brought onto the scene and shown everybody how effective this actually is. And it's crazy because I also talked about it in my Andrew Tate video as well. He actually had a whole kickboxing career where he was throwing this exact same combo. And he put out Erosa, man. That was definitely the best finish of the whole card. Definitely deserves a performance bonus. Caceres, man, just doing the thing. You cannot overlook this guy. Erosa's supposed to be the bigger, stronger man with a much longer reach, but the skills that Caceres brings forward, the guy hasn't lost a step. In fact, he looks better than ever. And speaking of older fighters who have been in the UFC for such a long time getting a big knockout, Dober knocks out Bobby Green. Man, was he getting pieced up the whole fight. Eating straights, jabs, a bunch of punches from Bobby Green, but the Crimson Chin prevails. You can't knock this guy out. He's been knocked down by only one opponent, that was Terrence McKinney, and Bobby Green hits hard. Bobby Green has some sharp, precise punches, and he was hitting Dober so clean for a round and a half, he couldn't even hurt him. He barely was able to get him to step back. Dober was all foot on the gas, going after Bobby Green, pure pressure, and just like he says, I have a chin and a left hand. And man, that's all he needs to beat some of these guys. It's so unfair. Having Drew Dober's chin should not be allowed because we have no idea what's made of. Where he could just trade with you and win. He just needs to trade punches with you and he's going to beat you. I don't know if there's any fighter in this division that can out-trade Drew Dober. He has the hardest chin and one of the most powerful left hands. He's also very athletic, and at his older age, he's better than he's ever been before. I don't know what's going on with these older guys like Drew Dober, Alex Caceres, Glover Teixeira, Beneil Dariush. There's this phase right now where these older fighters are getting better, whereas historically, it's always been the opposite. The older guys are always getting worse. It was so crazy to see Bobby Green's punches bounce off Drew Dober's head, and then Dober just land a left hand behind the ear. So Drew Dober called out Jalen Turner, and on Twitter, it looked like Turner actually wants the fight. So we got ourselves a fight most likely. Drew Dober versus Jalen Turner is a fight I would love to see. That's an exciting one. That's what we want to see, man. These guys take up these fights. Mikel had a good TKO win against Cody Brundage, reversed the position on the wrestler, which is actually the most surprising thing about the fight. So Mikel got taken to the ground, but then able to reverse and just landed a couple big haymakers from the top and finished off the fight very quickly after 2 of them. Corey McKenna getting a big upset win against Cheyenne Buys. Wrestling was such a big difference here. Buys really couldn't shake off McKenna at all. It was kind of surprising to be honest. McKenna definitely looked faster than I've ever seen her before. Jake Matthews got blasted through by Matthew Semmelsberger. Really tough loss for Jake Matthews, where he had a very good performance in his last one. Said Nurmagomedov getting that comeback win against Karamanov wasn't like that much of a comeback if we're going to be honest here. It was halfway into the second round, so there was still almost half the fight left to go. But I believe Said got the ninja choke on him. It's like a different variation of a guillotine. And you can see how long his arms are, man. He's able to wrap around your neck so fast. I love those kind of chokes, man. I never like the Arman guillotines. I never like anything like that. Full on squeeze on the neck with both arms. That's the way to go. Said got a very good win there. Great card, man, to end the year. And I'm going to come up with a video to recap the year. What were the best fights, best finishes, best performances, best techniques used, the most revolutionary fighter of the year. All of those sort of stuff. If you guys want, I could do a breakdown going over all my predictions of the year, what I got right, what I got wrong, the nightmare matchups and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff coming up while we wait for the next fights. It's going to be fun, and I'll see you guys in the next video.